Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Palmer from Know Your Rights Group and Success Coaching International with another important live video update for you tonight. First and foremost, a very happy Mother's Day to all of the wonderful mums out there. I hope you all had a great day. Now, I also hope that all of you watching this video have seen our Do You Trust Your Government hashtag being placed around everywhere. Please keep an eye out for that, because you're going to be seeing it a lot more. In the same way as the Know Your Rights group was created as a bit of an umbrella group, and we connected with all the other groups, Aussie Speeding Fines, Bank Secrets Revealed, CLRA, Operate in the Private, the Great Australian Party, all these different groups, we all sort of came together, and that's how the Know Your Rights group was formed. Well, the Know Your Rights group is now moving on and connecting with a lot of other like-minded groups, and we're all operating under this new Do You Trust Your Government hashtag. So keep an eye out for it. Everyone's got slightly different views and ideas and paths, but just know that we're all on the same ultimate path, and that is about awakening people, enlightening people, giving people information, teaching them about their rights, giving them freedom of choice. That's what this is all about. So, what about the hashtag itself? Do you trust your government? Really, it's obviously a question, and it's a very important question. Now, I did a video a couple of days ago, it might have been last week sometime, and it was entitled, Can You Help Me Answer a Few Questions? Now, if you missed it, please go to our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, do a search for Know Your Rights Group, and you'll find it. And we found that questions are a really great way to get people thinking. And this is the whole concept behind this whole hashtag, Do You Trust Your Government? So, very simply, if we ask you a few questions, we can find out whether or not you actually trust your government. So, for example, do you genuinely trust what your government tells you when they tell you, for example, that the COVID Safe app that everybody has to download is 100% safe, but then 2 or 3 days later, they enact new legislation and say, well, anyone that hacks the COVID Safe data and uses it for nefarious purposes is going to be severely punished and go to jail for 6 months and all the rest of it. Why would that be necessary if it was, in fact, 100% safe, as they said? Do you entrust the integrity of the data, given that it's being held on overseas Amazon servers? Especially when you consider that Amazon got that because of a tender that they were the lowest bid for. Do you genuinely trust your government knowing that that data is on those servers to the lowest bidder? Do you trust the government who tells people they have to download the app before we can come on, come out of lockdown? They then go on national TV and tell us all how it's going to save lives if you download this app, but it doesn't actually work, specifically on Apple iPhones, as was reported in the Sydney Morning Herald just a few days ago. Half-baked, the COVID Safe app is not fit for purpose on iPhones. It says the COVID Safe app doesn't work on iPhones in the way it was sold to Australians. While improvements were made for a launch by adjusting the code, the app remains not fit for purpose on iPhones. The main issue, because there's a number of them, but the main one, it doesn't always complete digital handshakes with nearby phones that also have the app installed if it isn't running in the foreground, i.e. on the screen all the time, or it has been installed on an older model iPhone. Additionally, it may not work at all when the screen is locked. So essentially, the app is useless. But here we are all being told it's going to save lives. So do you really trust your government? Do you trust your government when they make such a monumental error over something so important? Or so they claim. Do you trust your government when the government in Tanzania, get this, tested a goat, a pawpaw, and motor oil with the new COVID-19 tests, and they all came back with positive results? Go and look it up on YouTube if you don't believe me. Okay, that's the Tanzanian government. Go and check it out. Do you trust your government when countries around the world, especially in Italy, which reported some of the highest number of deaths, admitted that anything that was even COVID-19 related, okay, or could have been a possible COVID-19 infection, was counted as a COVID-19 death. Do you trust your government and their figures? Do you trust your government when they rely on similar figures here as justification for forcing most small businesses to shut down around the country and telling us that we can't come out of lockdown unless we download an app that doesn't work? Okay, or worse still, as an excuse to force people to receive a flu vax before they can go back and do their jobs, or before they can go and visit family and loved ones in hospitals and aged care facilities. Do you trust your government when they're rolling out 5G networks without any comprehensive testing of the possible side effects? Do you trust your government when the Prime Minister's wife, at the time of the no jab, no pay laws a few years ago, was on the board of one of the vaccine companies? Really? Do you still trust your government? Do you trust them when they swear allegiance to a fictitious Queen of Australia as opposed to the Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland as provided for in the Commonwealth Constitution and the Bill of Rights? Yes, those same laws that they try and tell us, oh, but they're just very old, don't worry about them. Okay, do you trust the government that registers the Commonwealth of Australia with the US Securities and Exchange Commission, which is basically the US version of our ASIC? Do you trust the government that lets a so-called department, i.e. the ATO, continue writing to people under the letterhead, under the logo and under the name, okay, that they themselves have admitted in the High Court, in the Mollica v Chapman case, they're using that name when they've admitted it's a non-legal entity and it's used purely to extract money from people? What would happen if we did that? Do you trust your government when they use so-called scientific devices, okay, to issue fines and further extract money from people when they've neither harmed nor injured anybody in any way, but those devices don't actually comply with federal legislation and the manufacturers themselves spell out how inaccurate they are? This stuff is all detailed in this Aussie Speeding Fines book. It is amazing what you'll find when you read this, okay? Some of the stuff, just to give you an idea, okay, points out here the devices don't comply with Section 10 of the National Measurement Act. There's excerpts here that tell you that the possibilities for interference are too numerous to mention, yet they'll stand up in court and say that this is a scientific device and it's accurate. Okay? These devices have a tendency to occasionally process the wrong frequency. I mean, this is just a couple of pages out of this book. If you're a motorist in this country, you need to get this book. AussieSpeedingFines.com. All the websites that I've mentioned before are all listed in the description of this video. Check it out. You still believe your government? Okay, but wait, there's more. Okay, do you trust your government? Okay, when they continue to enslave us with debt by borrowing money from the international banking cartel at interest that can never ever be repaid, okay, rather than creating bills of exchange through Section 81 of the Commonwealth Constitution as they're obligated to do? Do you trust the government when they continue subjecting us to overseas control, okay, because they force us to operate under a foreign-owned Reserve Bank of Australia rather than having our own constitutional bank? Did you know that they can kick out the Federal Reserve, the Rothschild-owned bank, at any time, just as they did in Iceland, and we would not only survive, we would absolutely thrive? Again, all of this is detailed in this book, Bank Secrets Revealed. I mean, some of the stuff in here talks about the Federal Reserve System. It's a private bank. It's not a government-owned bank that a lot of people think. That they think, oh, Reserve Bank of Australia, that's owned by our government. No, it's most assuredly not. Okay? Here's some other points that you really need to be aware of. All right? This talks about, you know, some privity of contract and a whole bunch of legal terms that when banks engage in home loans, it's an actual fraud that they commit. And the government knows all this stuff, but they let them get away with it. Okay? There's trespass signs in this book that you can download. Okay? Dillon v. Plenty. We're going to be talking about personal trespass a little bit later in this video. Okay? This is all stuff that's available to you, okay, in this book. All right? They talk about, you know, the more about the Reserve Bank being foreign owned. And there's actual letters in here that you can send to your bank, send to debt collectors, and ask them questions about all of this information. So if you don't have that, especially if you're struggling financially at the moment like a lot of people are, grab a copy of that. So you still trust your government? Okay, great. So, do you trust that your government has your best interests at heart when the current Prime Minister was an ex-banker doing all the things that I just mentioned and has kept all the banks and all the boys at the big end of town, all the big businesses afloat, while essentially forcing all the small mum and dad businesses to basically shut down and collapse? Okay, do you trust the government when they elect a Prime Minister, but the term Prime Minister doesn't even exist in our Commonwealth Constitution? Did you know that? Okay, so they're not abiding by the highest law in the land. Do you trust your government and this Prime Minister when only a few short years ago our Prime Minister was being changed more often than our smoke alarm batteries because of all the infighting within government? Okay? Do you trust your government when they kick out their own members of parliament under Section 44I of the Constitution, but they don't even actually understand themselves that the true foreign power that they're supposed to be in breach of, okay, stems from Unidroit, okay, something that most people have no idea about, okay? We've got an entire chapter, okay, on Unidroit in the Know Your Rights book. Okay, teaches you all about law versus legal, what Unidroit is, okay, how we've all been subjected to private law in this country. Okay, do you trust your government when they continue to act under the colour of law as opposed to common law? Now we get lots of lawyers jumping on and posting their comments. Well, if you're a lawyer, if you're legally trained, you should understand the distinction between true law and the colour of law. And that's what we've been forced to operate under here in this country since 1973. Okay? Do you even understand the difference yourself? Do you trust a government that arrests people like they did yesterday, that shocking footage of that poor lady that had her child ripped from her arms, okay, when they are simply exercising their right to peacefully protest all of these very points that I've just gone through, under, of course, the completely false and misleading guise of community safety, but the officers themselves weren't even wearing gloves or any protective gear and they weren't socially distancing. Go and have a look at the video footage for yourselves. So I ask you again, do you trust your government? And if not, what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to sit there with the belief that, well, no, I don't really trust them, but there's nothing I can do about it? Or are you going to go and put in some effort to learn about your rights, learn the truth about what they've been hiding from you for so long, okay, and then take some real action? Send in letters, bombard your MPs, bombard the politicians with letters, bombard them with my will letters, bombard them with FOI requests. Pick up the phone, call them and ask them some of these questions, okay? And let them know that we don't trust them. Back them into a corner and remind them that they exist to do our bidding. They are our elected representatives, not the other way around. Okay, now if you do want to learn about your rights, again, I would urge you, jump onto our website, knowyourrightsgroup.com.au, the link's in the description, grab a copy of this book, get your head around these essential points that you need to understand to really start taking action and letting our government know very loudly, very clearly that we do not trust them, and if they don't start taking action in line with our will and our requirements, then there's going to be further escalation, there's going to be further steps taken, and this is something that we're going to be talking about in detail on Tuesday night's show. So please make sure this coming Tuesday night between 8 and 10 p.m, and that's Australian Eastern Standard Time, just go to knowyourrightsgroup.com.au/radio-show, and wherever you are in the country, in fact wherever you are in the world, you can just log in and listen to that live. It's completely free, and we're going to be going into a lot more detail on all of this stuff. So again, I'm going to ask you one final time. Do you trust your government? And if not, what are you going to do about it? I urge you to take action. Please share this video far and wide, and let's start taking action collectively, sending our government a loud, clear message, and let's start bringing about the much needed change that we so desperately need in this country. Thank you all and have a great night.